This is GrantTalk, hosted by Libby Hikind, founder and CEO of GrantWatch and author of The Queen of Grants.
Hi, everybody. I'm Libby Hikind, and I'm your host today on GrantTalk, powered by GrantWatch. And I'm also the author of The Queen of Grants, From Teacher to Grant Writer to CEO. Sitting with me today is Dr. Susie Boxman, and I'm so excited to speak with her. She's from the EREF Foundation, which is, let's see if I can get this right, the Environmental Research and Educational Foundation. And they have given grants ranging from $15,000 to $500,000 over the years. The average grant award is about $160,000. And we want to find out what they're doing, where the money's coming from, and who they're funding, and why. So let's talk to Susie. Thank you, Dr. Boxman, for being with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
So tell me, what does your organization do?
Sure. So as you said, we're EREF, or the Environmental Research and Education Foundation. And our mission is to advance scientific research and create educational pathways that enable innovation and sustainable waste management. And so what that means really is that we fund and do research related to improving the way that we manage materials and the way that we manage how we throw things away. So we do research to make sure that when you throw something out, it is handled responsibly and that the facilities that process that are doing it in the most sustainable way possible to help protect the environment and to make sure that these processes are efficient.
Well, this touches a nerve for me. Years ago, I lived in Staten Island, New York. Fresh Kills landfill was there and it was being closed. And it was a whole question of what we were going to do with the waste and how are we going to manage it. And I was running for city council at that time. And that was a very big part of, the dialogue then. And I remember talking about retrofitting waste management facilities to handle it. I don't know what they did in the end because I no longer live there. But so I studied a little bit of your subject matter. So you give out quite a bit of money and you have many different programs. I see you have scholarships and research and community education. So tell us, where does the money originate from?
Sure. So most of our funding comes through donations and support that we get from companies within the solid waste industry. So we have a couple of big fundraisers that we do every year. One is an equipment auction, which is actually really fun, where different companies will donate large pieces of waste management equipment. So a lot of these can be trash trucks, for example, or containers and dumpsters and those sorts of things. And then companies will bid on them, and those donations come to us and help fund our budget so that then we provide those as research grants or scholarships to others.
That's really neat. So I just want to stop you there for a minute because your auction is a recycle auction, basically, right? Nobody has to throw anything out.
Yeah, I mean, it's typically new equipment that we're auctioning off, and these companies, they would be purchasing the equipment anyways, but instead of purchasing it directly from the manufacturer, they purchase it basically through the auction that we host. And then the equipment is donated itself. So we're not buying equipment. We're getting those as donations.
Oh, so you have what we call in the grant world in-kind support.
Yes, exactly.
From the manufacturers of the equipment so that you can continue your research. That's great. Great idea.
Yeah. So it's a really fun event to come to and to see. And so we have, some other fundraisers like that. But pretty much our donations are coming from major companies that operate within the solid waste industry.
They would love for you to say their names.
Some of the big ones, I'm sure I'll forget some. So Waste Management or WM, Republic Services, GFL, Waste Connections, but also equipment manufacturers can also participate. It's really kind of runs the gambit for anyone who is involved in the industry.
What about government funding?
So we're privately funded. All of our money comes from these companies, a lot more than the ones that I just mentioned. We ourselves have occasionally applied for government funding, but that's not really a common source of funding for us or that we provide to others.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you have this money. And are you doing research yourselves? You are. Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I mean, we do a variety of internal research projects. We have some technical staff. It's all really driven by our 3 strategic priority areas, which drive the research we do internally, and it also drives the research that we fund externally. And so our focus for those are on greenhouse gas emissions or climate change, emerging contaminants, so that'd be things like forever chemicals called PFAS. Microplastics is kind of a new hot topic. And then the final one is advancing materials circularity, or kind of like unrecycling. So all of the work we do kind of falls within those areas, as well as all of the work that we fund.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now let's talk about grants. Now that we know, it's Susie, Dr. Susie, how did you get into this?
That's an interesting question. So I guess the start was really doing my PhD in environmental engineering. And I worked on, it wasn't really solid waste per se, but it was on materials reuse and reusing waste products from fish farms, actually. And so kind of that idea of, let's take what we have and make sure we're using everything that we can instead of throwing things away got me involved in the Environmental Protection Agency, where I worked on sustainable materials management. And so from there, then I found out about EREF, and, we just have such a great mission of we're really trying to make sure we are improving how we manage resources and making sure we're using things efficiently. Then I kind of ended up here, and I'm able to continue doing research in solid waste.
And I like that you are private, in that you're not taking public funds, because you get to speak out and say what's true, and nobody's holding you back, and that's great.
Yeah, well, and that really touches on a key part of our organization, and that's the integrity of the research that we do. So, I mean, there's a lot of issues, your example of wondering what you're going to do when you run out of landfill space. You want to have an organization that independently can kind of figure out what the best path is to be able to manage materials, or, whatever the topic might be. And that's really what we pride ourselves on, is kind of the integrity and the fact that we're putting out unbiased research where we're going to answer the question in the best way we can. And it's not going to be influenced by even the donors, they don't have control over the research we're doing. They're not influencing the answers. We're putting out the answers based on the science.
And you're not using AI necessarily.
Not yet.
Not yet.
We'll see.
I know that's what everybody says. You'll see when you can trust it, right?
I mean, if it can help us get things done faster, then maybe, there's a lot of unanswered questions. If it can help us answer them faster, then maybe it will be a good tool.
Right. That's when you should use it. That's right.
Yeah.
So now you offer all these grants. So tell us, and I know you have a grant that's due, right? And so let's speak about that grant, and we'll try to get this video produced by then.
That would be amazing. So our first grant for this year, we have 2 application periods every year for our research grants. And those application periods actually open up 2 weeks before. And what we're looking for in that submission is a 2-page pre-proposal. So like a 2-page research proposal that really focuses on those strategic priority areas that I mentioned. So on our website, we have the document that really describes the details of what all of those mean and what we're looking for in terms of research. And so that 2-page proposal should really address what research you're planning to do, how you plan to accomplish it, and how it's going to improve the solid waste industry. Because that's really what we're trying to focus on, is we're trying to make sure we're solving problems, and we want to hear how that research is going to solve a problem.
So this is great for everybody that's studying engineering and waste, because they can write a research grant.
Yeah. And so, I mean, we do predominantly, our grantees tend to be at academic institutions, but we have also worked with consulting companies or nonprofit institutions as well. It really depends on the quality of the research that's being proposed and that it is solving a specific challenge or addressing a need.
So talk to me about quality. What are we talking about?
About quality?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think, like I said, the strength is in showing that you're solving a problem and making sure we understand how you plan to do that. So any high quality research proposal really outlines what the problem is and has a pretty clear methodology for how you're going to approach it. And so that could include, understanding what research methods you're going to use in the lab, what sites you plan on using in order to do your experiment, what tools are necessary, and also having a good budget. So a budget is required for the pre-proposal applications. And so we want to make sure that for the money that we're giving you and for what you're proposing, that the research aligns with, what you say you're going to do makes sense financially.
So I always talk about that the budget builds the application.
Yeah.
And then everything in the application, the narrative has to be in the budget and vice versa, right?
Yep. That is exactly it.
This morning I did a podcast teaching grant writers, and we went over needs, goals, objectives, activities, evaluation, timeline, and budget. Do you have all those parts in the 2-page proposal?
I think we don't have quite as many parts as that. Kind of like the need, the how you're going to do it, or the methods, the justification on the budget.
Good job.
It's only 2 pages.
2 pages. And
you gotta fit a lot in there.
Okay. And then if they complete it, they submit it, do they then have to do a full proposal if you're looking more closely at it?
Yeah, the pre-proposals go through a review process. They're reviewed internally. And then we have a committee, we call them the Research Council. And so they're made up of academics, consultants, other people in the industry who will also review all of the pre-proposals. And so we rank and rate them and have discussion about them, and kind of the top, usually 10 to 15 or so, then move on to the next stage, and we request full proposals, a 10-page full proposal from those groups.
And typically, how many applications do you get with the 2-page proposal?
Yeah, it's changed recently, but I would say we probably get somewhere between 60 to 80 2-page proposals.
Mm-hmm. And I hope GrantWatch is helping you with that, because we advertise your grants. We publish
That's great. Yeah, I don't know that we've seen the results of that quite yet, but I expect, especially after this, we'll probably see a nice increase
yes.
in the number of applications, which would be exciting.
So we go from 60 down to 10 to 15, and now they're asked to write a full proposal. How large is that proposal?
So that's a 10-page proposal, full proposal that we are looking for.
And it has a specific application.
Mm-hmm.
And now we get down to following directions, right?
Yeah. Even in the 2-page, you got to follow directions. But
and what do you see?
Yeah.
What do you see in these? Do some of them just get discarded because they totally didn't follow directions?
In the pre-proposal, probably. By the full proposal, they're pretty high-quality applications. There's nothing that's discarded at that point because people are meeting the requirements. It's really a technical review to make sure that they are very clear in what what question they're solving or answering, and how they plan to approach the work. We're really looking for in the full proposals to understand that they're qualified to do the research, they have the resources necessary and the experience necessary to be able to do it, and a solid plan for how they're planning to approach it.
Mm-hmm. And from the 10 to 15, how many would you generally fund?
Yeah, so a year, since we have the 2 cycles, we fund about 1 to 4 a year. And so in any cycle, at 1 to 3 really is the most that we'll fund during any specific cycle.
And if they don't get awarded, can they apply again?
Yes, and we encourage it. So we try and give feedback where we can. And so most grantees can easily just reapply, take whatever feedback we provide and reapply for the next cycle. It is a pretty competitive process. And it also somewhat just depends on what the needs are at the moment. So just because a proposal wasn't funded doesn't mean that it wasn't really high quality. It wasn't that we didn't want to fund it. It's just we have limited resources too. So we definitely encourage people to reapply.
What other grants do you have available?
Other grants. So that's great. Our scholarship program is a really exciting program that we have as well. So this is for master's and doctoral students. And we have 1 application a year for this in the spring. So we just wrapped that up. We're actually reviewing applications right now. And so it's for help students to be able to, support themselves as they're doing their graduate studies.
How much is usually funded for the scholarship?
In terms of number of students, we keep breaking records every year with more and more students funded, but I think it's kind of around 25 to 28 students will fund each year.
So it's really worth applying if you're in that field.
Yeah, it's very much worth applying. It's also very competitive. We'll usually get probably 100 applications in every year, at least, maybe more than that. But it's the nice thing about the grant is you're kind of supported throughout the rest of your program. So we provide a monthly stipend, and the rate varies depending on whether or not you're a master's or a doctoral student. And as long as you're continuing in your studies, we will continue to support you, which is nice compared to a lot of other scholarships. It's 1 year or 2 years, right, and then you're done.
And you don't know if you can finish your degree or take out loans, right? So you're with them to the end.
Yep.
And typically, what areas of education are they in that they're applying for a scholarship?
So it still needs to relate to solid waste or materials management. We typically, the environmental engineering students or civil engineering students would be pretty common applicants, but we've had folks, if you're doing an economics degree, but you're looking at recycling or something like that, you'd be more than qualified to apply. So it's kind of the same as our research grants. The research needs to match our priority areas.
And I'm so glad to have met you. How would people reach you? Since you need private donors, so how would they find you?
Our website, www.erefdn.org, is probably the best way to find out more information about us. But we also attend, industry events, and you can find us there. And I think we also have, a variety of social media accounts.
And your grant is on our website, and people
another good place to look,
right? And people will find it there. So everyone, please hit subscribe at the bottom so that we can show you more of these wonderful videos and meet people just as wonderful as Dr. Susie Boxman. And I'm very grateful that you joined us today. And we are announcing your grants that it's due December 1st. And so you need to go. If you're in this industry, you want to go there. And otherwise, you want to listen to what you just heard about paying attention to the eligibility requirements, follow the directions, and continue to apply. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to GrantTalk, powered by GrantWatch. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this GrantWatch channel. Please consider subscribing to GrantWatch.com, and you can find the book, The Queen of Grants, by going to GrantWatch.com/book. Thank you again for spending your time with us.